depth and distinction. His work has woven together teaching, research, leadership, global collaboration, enriching the discipline and guiding its role in addressing pressing social realities. Professor Patnaik is currently the... Okay. Okay, sir. And also we are privileged to have Vijoy Sahay, sir, former head of Department of Anthropology, Allahabad University. And we have Surya Prakash, sir, who is an associate professor at the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Mandi. Please join us, sir.
Good evening to everybody. Mr. Chairperson, sir, I am really privileged to address this gathering where the very front-line anthropologists of the country have been sitting there. Professor Rath, Professor Samendra Patnaik himself, then the Director of Anthropological Survey of India, Dr. Professor B.V. Prasad, and many. Well, this is my kind of anthropology. This topic seems to be a little, I don't know what people take it. And Arun is also there. So Ramesh is also there. I'm happy to speak to you on my kind of anthropology. It seems to be a little self-reflective. It seems to be a little self-reflective. Professor Pandey. So I said that the frontline anthropologists of the country have been now listening to me. It's my honor. Well, how did this title come into my mind? Actually, years before, I was reading a book by Edmund Leach. In 1982, he published a book, Social Anthropology. And in that book, chapter number 4, there is an essay, you can say, or his article. Its also name is My Kind of Anthropology. Indirectly, of course, I'm influenced by this title. Not with the kind of anthropology which Edmund Leach holds. I may have some differences, because he was a mathematician. He was by profession an engineer. And his kind of anthropology said that the level of abstraction, if you raise the level of abstraction in anthropological interpretation, the level of anthropology will improve. That kind of thing he said in his article. And he said that mathematics is a subject which is of highest abstraction. So mathematics should be taken help in anthropological interpretation. One of his articles is Jing for kinship, study in kinship or kinship algebra. This is what something, I'm forgetting the exact name of the article, but that is algebra of Jing for kinship, something like this. But my kind of anthropology is different, which I'll be speaking now. My kind of anthropology emerged in my mind while I was writing a couple of years before my book Experiencing Anthropology in the Nicobar Archipelago. This book, while I was writing, a lot of questions started hovering into my mind. Such questions as, oh, before that, I will be coming to that also, but let me say something which is directly concerned with the theme of this conference. There are a number of sustainable development and all these things are also added here in the theme of the conference. But there are certain terms in contemporary anthropology which often make me uneasy to accept entirely, such as sustainable development, goals of sustainable development, indigenous people, indigenous knowledge. And we have heard a lot of papers here in this very seminar last 2 days concerning with sustainable development, indigenous people, indigenous knowledge, etc. In contemporary anthropology, particularly by American anthropologists, it has become a fashion, it has become a trend to replace the old British social anthropological, rather colonial terms, we can say, by new terms, particularly coined during the colonial period. Many of such terms to me, I frankly speaking, many of you may not like it also, as old wine in new bottles, such as public anthropology, in place of action anthropology, folk art, folk medicine, indigenous knowledge and medicine, and so on. It can be elaborated a lot, but since we have to, I try myself to complete my ideas. I'll not elaborate how why and these terms are not acceptable to me. If you ask me, I can. More importantly, all the 17 goals, every time we are talking about goals of sustainable development, which was framed by United Nations, something to achieve around, say, 2030. So, all the 17 goals that were born in the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012, are they achievable? To me, it appears a utopia. Such as Ram Rajya of Mahatma Gandhi. This also seems to be a utopia to me. And Samyavad or communism championed by Marx and Engels. That they wrote in Communist Manifesto in 1848. We know, all of us know, we have seen the slides also of all the 17 goals. I don't repeat those names of those 17 goals, but can anyone tell me or enlighten me that at which point of time and place in history, ever since man's appearance on earth, any such society has ever existed? I emphatically say, never. Let us discuss the feasibility of some of the goals only. For example, the first is no poverty. Today, around 700 million people live in extreme poverty. Sub-Saharan region of Africa has the highest concentration of the people in extreme poverty, accounting for 67% of global total according to the World Bank. Second, zero hunger, which aims to end hunger, achieve food security, and improved nutrition. And by 2030, the latest figure is that 280 million people suffered from acute hunger in 2003. Now it must have gone even more than that. A crisis putting their lives at immediate risk. About 733 million faced chronic hunger the same year, and around 150 million more than in 2019. They persistently lack safe and nutritious food. Third goal, I'll not take all the 17, but some of them. Third goal, good health and well-being. According to statistics, globally 2.4 million children died in the first month of life in 2019 only. Just imagine, 2.4 million people died within 1 month of their birth. This figure must have increased manyfold in 2024. Globally, 2.3 million children died in the first 28 days of their life in 2022. There are approximately 6,500 newborn deaths every day, amounting to 47% of all child deaths under the age of 5. Fourth is quality education. The least said about it, the better. About the school education in underdeveloped countries and developing countries like India also. I have experiences of the schools that are run today in India, particularly by the government. And fifth, gender equality. This is a great. More than 370 million girls and women alive today. Once again, more than 370 million girls and women alive today experienced rape and sexual assault before the age of 18. We get the statistic only that are reported in the police station. But what happens about the others which are not reported? So, according to a new UNICEF estimates released on October 10, 2024, that make lifelong impact, and the girls who are sexually abused before the age of 18, it keeps, lifelong impact in their mind of such victims. It remains. Sixth, clean water and sanitation. Do all the people of the world have access to clean water? No, not at all. In the world, as of 2025, over 2 billion people lack access to safely managed drinking water, with millions more collecting water from untreated surface sources. Well, I have my field experience in different parts of the country, and I've seen that how the women go miles together and down the hill, and on their head they fetch drinking water. I have several photographs of them from Rajasthan and other places. Last, sixth, that's all. The above discussed 6 out of 17 interconnected global goals adopted by United Nations in 2015 as part of 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development is only the tip of the iceberg. If one critically examines the prevailing conditions of all the 17 goals of the SDG in the world, it would be awfully disgusting and mind-boggling. We should note that there is a difference between idealism and realism. Rather, in case of SDGs adopted by United Nations, these stand poles apart in contradiction, poles apart and in contradiction with one another. The goals, I have already said, are like Utopia of Ramrajya by Mahatma Gandhi and of communism by Marx and Engels. The amount of money that are pumped into that have been pumped into in the recent wars during only during 1.5 decades. I'm referring Israel, Palestine, UK, Russia, Ukraine, US, Afghan, US, Iraq, US, Kuwait, etc., and many more, in terms of arms and ammunition by developed countries, which developed countries are only 37 in the world, the rest out of 197. If the amount of money that has been spent to achieve the desired goals of, if that amount of money, if it had been shifted to achieve the desired goals of SD, sustainable development, at least to some extent, the existing situation of poverty, hunger, clean water would have been mitigated at least. Actually, where does the peninsula lie? It lies through multidisciplinary study to bring positive changes in subsistence technology of each group. And here, the role of anthropology, it should be multidisciplinary, but the role of anthropologist will be uppermost. Now, I want to say a few lines on indigenous people also. I'm directly addressing to the majority of Indian anthropologists that are they not aware of the fact that India is not a signatory to the ILO Convention number 169 on on indigenous people, indigenous and tribal peoples, though it has ratified the earlier ILO Convention of 107. India has though vetoed, but India has not vetoed, but India's stand, we know all, perhaps, that India does not consider the tribal people of the country as the indigenous population. And I have strongly written in various papers and debated on this issue on various platforms against the use of the term of tribes in India. However, I wonder why even many anthropologists in India consider Indian tribes synonymous to indigenous people and organize seminars and conferences adding these terms either before or after the theme or the sub-theme of the Congress. Now, this is what initially came to my mind while I was writing these points. Now I come to what I said, my kind of anthropology. And I have explained that it began in my mind, it came into my mind, it emerged into my mind while I was writing the experiencing anthropology in the Nicobar archipelago. And in the process, a lot of questions began hovering into my mind, such as, after all, what is anthropology? what is anthropology? Very simple thing. But this is something that emerged in me. Whether the scope of anthropological study is fathomable at all. Can we fathom the scope of anthropological study? I think no. Who is an anthropologist? This question also arose in my mind. Is only the one who has obtained a certificate or a degree in anthropology could be considered as an anthropologist? Is anthropological training or orientation of any kind necessary for writing a book or an article of anthropological nature? And if it is so, then why not the founding fathers had received any certificate or training in anthropology? Yet they wrote monumental books in the discipline for the posterity. If there are any difference, is there any difference between an anthropologist and a layman? This is also a question. I need answer from everyone or anyone. Does a layman not have an anthropological potential? After all, what does an anthropologist do? After all, what are the prerequisites for being an anthropologist? Is anthropology, the questions are, again, is anthropology the study of tribes and tribes alone? What is the difference between anthropology and other social sciences? And many more such questions shrouded my mind. As I began to delve into these queries, the answers began to unfold. Yes, the scope of any branch of anthropological study is fathomless. Thus, I believe. Even a layman has all the knack for becoming an anthropologist. The essential prerequisite to become an anthropologist is the curiosity to know about others' cultures. Not only what the members of the other culture do, but also why do they do so. This is exactly what an anthropologist does in the field. He observes the phenomena, examines the phenomena, and then he questions that why do they do so. Not only he writes ethnographic report, but he also questions why do they do, and he tries to find out the causal explanation of any such phenomena. And anthropology is not the study of tribes and tribes alone. It studies all aspects of man, of all time and space. The essential 4 characteristics of anthropology differentiate it quite apart from any other social science. I don't need to elaborate it, Only 3 examples I will give, just to explain that curiosity to know about others, that what do they do and why do they do. 3 examples I'll refer, and 3 or 2 examples I will refer, and these are present in the internet also. One is Richard Lee's, an American anthropologist, essay, Eating Christmas in Kalahari. It was published in 1969. And second is Laura Bohannon. Her essay is Shakespeare in the Bush, which was published in 1966. Another article also, having my own, in 1921 I wrote about Chaura, I'm skipping. Anthropology, in fact, is a framework of mind. I'm speaking a little slang. It's not a Tom, Dick and Harry's job to become an anthropologist. Doing a job in anthropology is one thing, and doing anthropology is another. These are some of my convictions. Eating Christmas in Kalahari, in that, what happens? That Richard Lee, one complete year is spent life with the Kungs of South Africa. Kungs of South Africa. And after 1 year, he wanted to leave the field and go on. Before that, he wanted to give a party to the informants and the kum where he had stayed. He told one of the informants that go around the area and found out the fattest ox. Fattest ox. Okay. His informant went there, he found and he paid the in pound, and then it was brought to the camp where Richard Lee had stayed in the field. Now, from the next morning, first of all, an old lady comes and she asks, "Why have you bought this?" Then he explained that I'm leaving now after 2 or 3 days after Christmas. After Christmas, I'm leaving. Therefore, the title is Eating Christmas in Kalahari. He wanted to go there. And he said that he brought for them to host a good party. The old lady saw first of all, the ox, and then Richard Lee with frowned eyes and said, "What was the need of it? We didn't ask you for this." And then he said, "It's my something." I mean, he thought that this old lady is something old, so she's not perhaps understanding or something like that. But that was the beginning. Every member of the community used to come to him, saw the axe, and one of them said that if you had wanted to give us the axe, why not you brought a fatty axe? Because that was the fattest axe. But still saying that you should have, because this will be not even good for the soup also. This type of comment. And he felt very much insulted. Richard Lee felt very much insulted that why they have been criticizing. I brought it for them and they are not happy at all. And these people are gathering and hunting people. Men go for hunting and women go for gathering in the bushes. And she was very much surprised. So he got absolutely annoyed of these insults. He told his wife to pack the things and went away. Went away from there. He went about 30 kilometers in a small town where one of his friends was there. And at the time of dinner, he discussed about these things that I stayed 1 year with them. But I failed to understand why did they do so. This was it. The man was also an anthropologist and he laughed at him. And he said that they were inflicting obligatory insult to you. That was obligatory. Because they are an egalitarian society. They are an egalitarian society. And in that, community survival is more important than the individual survival. So, even whatever they bring in the day, men bring something from hunting and women from gathering, that is brought to the camp and equally distributed among all the members of the group. Equal distribution will be there. Not that I have killed a big animal like giraffe or something like that, I shall be given more and more for my family. No, that is not there. Equal distribution will be there. A man who is sick for months together and is not going to the field, no problem. He will be given equal share. Because tomorrow, when he gets covered, and then he will go and bring the same thing will be there. So this egalitarianism in a gathering, hunting and society is there. Now, why do they do this? This also is solved. What do they do? Okay. Now I am trying to be more brief and all. Likewise, Shakespeare in the Bush also, that I will refer, you go to the internet and put it there and you will find it, all the explanation. Now, I am going to not conclude right now, but I have been given 10 minutes. Well, when I speak about my kind of anthropology, I confine my discussion to the Indian anthropology only. What do I think about Indian anthropology and what it should be? Well, with regard to the Indian anthropology, I have both a very pessimistic view as well as very optimistic. Both views are there with regard to the Indian anthropology. First, in a few lines, I explain why it is pessimistic. Well, in this seminar hall, majority of, I said, frontline anthropologists of the country are present. I would like to be enlightened from them. Is there any example of any fundamental or theoretical research in any branch of Indian anthropology, barring one, of course, in forensic anthropology, Keval Kishan? I repeat this sentence, that I would like to be enlightened from them. Is there any example of any fundamental theoretical research in any branch of anthropology, discipline of anthropology, barring one I've told you? Because I find none. If there is any, I would like to know. If not, I would like to know why not. Why not? During the entire course of anthropological history, reference of any fundamental research is only the branch of in any branch of discipline comes only from the Euro-American societies. True, it's true that anthropology is considered to be a Western science. But the anthropological ideas have been deeply rooted in the antiquity of Indian culture and civilization. When I say that I don't find in any branch of anthropology any fundamental or theoretical research, one may give example of Vidyarthi's sacred complex. I'm a student of Vidyarthi, he was my guru. One may give the example of Vidyarthi's sacred complex and nature means spirit complex and Srinivas' dominant caste and Sanskritization. I'm not going into detail, but Vidyarthi's was an application of Chicago School of Anthropology. I'm a student, I know. And Professor Srinivas, we know all. Impact of British social anthropology because of Radcliffe Brown, he was a student of him. Earlier I have said that there is a difference between idealism and rationalism. Oh, that I have completed. Sorry. Sorry. Chicago School. Nevertheless, after having said this, I am optimistic as well. All the theories in social culture anthropology are but the results of comparisons between cultures. And comparisons could best be done where varieties of community live. The more the varieties of communities, the more the possibilities of comparison. And this, I'm saying, Marvin Harris, his book, Rise of Anthropological Theory, you find, he has clearly written that all the theories in social culture anthropology are but the result of comparisons between cultures. A lot can be explained on this. I'm skipping. In terms of varieties of cultures, oft repeated sentence, I've written also in many of my articles. In terms of variety of cultures, India stands next only to the continent of Africa, perhaps, which has got 54 nations. And in terms of antiquity, she is next to none. I don't need to elaborate it how. Indian anthropologists never needed to go to Samoa or New Guinea, Trobriand Island of the Pacific, or to any other isolated community in any other continent of the world. India represents all cradles of human culture and civilization, from hunting, gathering, there in Andamans we know very well, and pastorals, artisans, and all cradles, whatever is there. The representative groups in India can be found. We should know the advancement of any scientific discipline largely depends upon promotion and additions of the very fundamental researches in it. And thereby, new hypotheses, new concepts, new theories emerge. Otherwise, the discipline becomes stagnant. Second thing, during the last 3 or 4 decades, many of you may not agree, during the last 3 or 4 decades, researches in applied and development aspect of anthropology have considerably relegated the fundamental and theoretical researches in social culture anthropology in India. Third, the antiquity and contemporary mosaic of Indian society and culture provide one of the best breeding grounds for the genesis of development and new anthropological concepts and theories. I don't quote Honigman, who says that more fertile, because Western anthropology owes to Greece and Rome for the development of any anthropological ideas. But Honigman himself writes in the same book, Development of Anthropological Theory, in 1976 he writes that more fertile and more prosperous civilizations existed in India prior to Greece and Rome. And if, his words I'm quoting, if the ancient scriptures of India are properly examined, we have the possibility of anthropology discovering new anthropological light. New anthropological light, I'm underquote. This Honigman says. And many others have written here what Marvin Harris says, what Anna Dewall Malfield says. There are a lot of things, let me read. Presently, the status of Indian anthropology, presently the quantum of anthropological researches in terms of publication of books and articles and award of degrees have increased to a great extent. However, the quality of such researches and publications in India have declined to a greater extent. Therefore, Indian anthropology in terms of researches has become stagnant. I'll take hardly 3-4 minutes. That paper, will you give me? Well, it's a whistle blower type of thing. I'm now 3-4 things I'm going to speak with regard to the Indian anthropology itself. That the economic and social exploitation of Indian people and India's mineral and natural resources by the British colonialism have been so extensive that least said the better. But today, when I look at the scene of the Indian anthropology and Indian anthropologists, I have a hunch that certain international forums are very silently and very subtly trying to colonize Indian anthropology by alluring anthropologists to participate in their conferences organized at huge costs. I would not name the organizations which I know. Not only anthropologists, but certain spiritual and religious organizations also are being silently overtaken by American missionaries. We all know how applied anthropology during colonial period has happened during the colonization. Will the Indian anthropologists introspect? Well, These are some of the points which I have told you, and could not because if I explain elaborately, it may take hours together, more than 2-3 hours. But I'm going to write a book now, My Kind of Anthropology, which I'm sure in 2026 will be coming. And a lot of things I'll be revealing that in that book. That what are such organizations, why they have been doing, what is their ulterior motive, and how we Indian anthropologists should not at least fall prey and become the victim of such conspiracies. With these words, I thank you for giving me opportunity to speak about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sahay, for really stimulating us to introspect, reflect upon past, present, and future. I think we have all the best minds, the younger